Hi everybody, it's Lynn. Today I want to show you and demo my new brush line. These are the 4 sizes as of right now of the Lynne Andrews Floater. This is a series 3020, and right now they come in size 14, 8, 4, and a 2. That's the newest one to be added to the line. I've teamed up with Brushes and More and designed these brushes, and I'll tell you, they've exceeded my expectations. I really knew exactly how I wanted these to be, and boy, I'll tell you, the brush company nailed it. So anyway, they're phenomenal, and I want to show you how I use them. Also, these are the Stiplers, and a brand new size 10 just in. So I've got a 10, an 8, a 6, and a 4. These are taking the place of the Scumbler that I used to use, the Low Cornell Scumbler. They're fabulous for dry brushing and stippling, so thus the name Stipler. And then these are what I use to float and basically everything, so they're called the Floater. So here we go. We're going to dive right in. Also, I have to mention the Jack Richardson domed sash brushes. Wow, I got to tell you, I'm in love with these. They have taken the place of, let me see if I can grab an old one, an old Duster Stipler. Yeah, I know, you can't even compare. No, obviously they're more money. I get it, but I got you all hooked on these, so I had to find a replacement. And wow, these are just fabulous. I don't know what that is right there. Disregard that. The 3 sizes I have are the 5/8, which is the smallest, which is what I had hoped for with the Duster Stipler, that it came in a little bit smaller size. This I use for everything, for mopping, stippling. This is the 7/8, which is the one in the middle, and then this is the 1 inch. So what I really would use the 2 larger ones for would be like for my Father Christmases, or any place where I have a large area of wash that I want to mop. And I'll get into that. I call it mopping, but it's more stippling. But anyway, I will get into that. But the 5/8 I use for small detail work. It just, instead of having a small mop and mop, I can just do this in a couple of little stipples, and it does the work in no time. So, and I still love Maxine's mops. You can't beat them. They don't have my 1/4 inch anymore, or I should say Maxine's 1/4 inch. But I do love the 1/2 inch, 3/8, and even the 1 inch for smaller areas to mop. So those are the brushes. This is a switch, a light switch cover I did 2007. This design, don't ask me, it's not mine. It is from a magazine I saw. And no, it won't be oh, I'm so embarrassed. There's like food on there because I had this in the kitchen. All right, that's better. This was from a magazine, and I copied it, which is why it will never be a pattern packet. So I couldn't even tell you who it was from or where I saw it or what magazine, but anyway, I loved it. So we're going to start with this so I can show you how exactly these brushes are used. Gotta kind of regroup here. All right, so we're going to start with, normally before with the Ultra Rounds, I found myself using the 4 for everything. Small washes, detail work. I can't find the 14 here. Don't mind me. Very ill prepared. Sorry guys. This demo came by rather quickly. Here's the 14. Okay. So I'm going to start with this. I am wetting it completely. I'm just going to blot it once or twice. And I'm going to pick up, let's see, the green. Now, normally I would use a little bit smaller brush, but I want to show you what this big guy can do. So when I float, I take the brush and I, as you saw, you think of it as a traditional float. You know, you wet your flat or angle, you blot it until it's just barely shiny. I stick the tip, which would be the corner of your flat, and I just kind of wiggle it back and forth in this little pile, and I twirl the tip as I go, really fast, you know, not giving it a lot of thought. It's working the paint down into the brush. So there's mostly paint and then paint water and then the remainder's water. I hold my brush parallel, straight up and down, parallel to the surface. And I use this motion. I know it's hard for you to tell on screen, versus holding the brush like you're painting. You want to think of your wrist facing upward. Not that you can paint this way, but it helps you to position the brush in the way that I use it. So let me move this. So I'm going to come in and do this part first. So when I float, I put the tip, and the beauty of this brush is just that, the tip. I can stick it right into the very tip there. Now I'm going to press down, and as I press down, can you see how wide that float line is? And because I've got so much water, I've got time to kind of push it and pull it. But I can go back, and again, these brushes, compared to the Ultra Round, are so much more, I want to say, pliable. I can wrap this around, and the bristles conform so well to the shape that most of the time I don't even have to like stop and move the piece around. Now, I just did that really fast, and I'm not going to do this side because I need to turn the paper, but I'm going to, whenever I mop, and when I say mop, I mean stipple. It's to soften and blend, and this way it gets rid of a lot of the brush lines. This section right here that I went over, don't worry about it. I'll go back and clean it up with my base coat color, which is buttermilk. I have such a bad habit of not being on screen. Okay. And again, sticking the tip right into the paint where I left off. Have to be careful not to overwork a wash, because it'll start to dry, and then when you go to mop it, you're going to lift some of the dried areas and blah, blah, blah. So again, there is definitely a stipple. So I'm going to dry it. A new thing I've started using is this heat gun, which is ideal for talking over, you know, on a video. You can hear me and I can continue to dry it, and everything doesn't get blown away. You have to be careful because the heat gun is super hot. And if you go to put a wash on right now while it's still hot, you're going to cook it right on there. You know I have done that. So the beauty of this brush is that you can cover a large area in a very short amount of time. So when I write a pattern, it's usually wash, which is with, you know, applying the screen, mop, which is what I just did with the domed Richardson, dry, which is this, and repeat, which is what I just did. So minimum 2 layers of wash when I do this. I need some buttermilk. Where is it? Right here. This is super random. I won't tell you that I'm completely prepared for this because I'm not, but I want you to get the idea. Okay, so that's the part that I just did. Now I'm going to switch to a smaller brush. And I said before, when I used the Ultra Rounds in the past, I always use the 4 because it holds more than the 2. They all have points that are basically the same size. So it's just a question of what's comfortable for you. I'm using the 8 lately for just about everything. I love it. I don't know why. It just seems to be that perfect in-between size for me. So I wet it. I mopped it a little bit. And I'm going to pick up some gold, antique gold. And I just tip it in. That's maybe 1/8 of an inch of paint on there on the tip. Work it back and forth. Now I'm going to have a smaller mop handy because I'm going to be doing some of the leaves here. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to flip this around, come in on the other side. Mop it in the center and see how fast that is? I'm going to pick up a little more paint now because this guy is behind or under these two petals. So I want this a little darker. So I'm going to mop towards the tip, and then as I get up towards the top part, I barely applied any pressure because I want that a little bit darker, meaning more paint. So I won't go through the whole thing, but I'll do one more wash to show you the difference that a second light layer of washes makes. So that's kind of heavy, so meaning a lot of paint. So I just tipped my brush in and got a little more water. When I paint, I barely apply any pressure on the brush. It's almost like sketching, and I have such a soft touch that sometimes I have to look and see if the tip's actually on, you know, the piece. Same thing with mopping. It's all about the amount of pressure you apply. You don't want it to, you know, well, it depends if you're trying to remove paint or just blend it. Obviously, if you're trying to, you know, do a true mop where you're removing paint, then you want to put a little pressure on it. And I'm just going to show you a little bit of shading now. So this is completely dry. I'm going to take some, I just wet the brush, I just really just tipped it in the water, and I'm going to stick it into burnt umber and wiggle it back and forth, and I'm going to shade this under section here. I'm going to take the soft mop, barely applying any pressure. Sometimes if I want a little more off, I'll use my finger. That looks about right. Now this one, I'm going to come in, and I think I've got a little too much water on here. It's trial and error. You need to just kind of play with it and get a feel for it. You know, if you go to mop and you lift everything, then you've used too much water. If you go to mop and nothing happens, then you need a little bit more water. So that's you know, using the larger brush and the medium size. Let's move on to like a Father Christmas. I know I've done these for you in the past. Because this is a bigger area, I'm going to do it really fast though. This is warm beige, formerly known as flesh tone. Going to come in, oh, I think I've got way too much water on there. So I'm kind of lifting some of it. I'm blotting my brush as I wipe it on paper towel. That's a little better. Normally when I paint something, it'll be 2-3 layers of wash. Sometimes you can nail it the first time. It depends. It's different every time. This is a little bit bigger brush. This is the 7/8. So I'm doing a straight up and down stipple. And what I'm trying to do is just blend and soften that wash so that when it dries, it's not all blotchy and uneven. You can hear I'm kind of, you know, putting a little tooth to it, but not enough pressure where I'm removing so much of the warm beige. Let me dry it. Now I'm going to come in with the, I think the 4, so that you can see the difference in size and what it can do. This is much bigger than the Father Christmas faces I normally do. All right, so again, I wet it. I'm gonna blot it once. Stick the tip into the burnt umber, wiggle it back and forth, and I'm gonna come in, holding my brush parallel up against the outside of the nose. Walk it out a little. I'm taking that Jack Richardson. Now that's starting to dry because I think I didn't let the warm beige dry enough. So I'm just wetting that edge before it sets. Sometimes you can do it. Sometimes I wait too late. Okay. Now I'm going to flip this around. Do the same thing on the other side. That's how I do all my Father Christmas faces and some of my animals. This edge, outside edge, is important that you get that out far enough, like beyond where you want it. So when you stipple it, you can stipple back into the darker area and leave what which is important, this dark edge. That's what you want to make sure you leave on there. I'll flip it around. We're going to come in and do the underside, the bottom part of the nose, the underside. Define that cheek area. See when I'm going back and forth like this? Just, it's almost like sketching, but what I'm doing is kind of taking that color, the paint, and putting it up against the transfer line, so that's how you're going to get rid of it. So now, I hope this is dry enough, boy. Mop, mop, mop. Yeah, I like to do kind of like this dark eye socket area. Mop, mop. Dry. This is exactly how I paint when I'm by myself, back and forth and fast, and usually this is in my hand when I'm painting. So now for a eye, I'm going to come in with a little buttermilk. Now I have a damp brush. It's not like super wet because I'm going to come in and I want to paint the almond shaped eye, and if I had too much water, the minute I put the tip down, it would just kind of drip out. So, and we don't want that. So when I do the eye, I kind of leave myself a little room of burnt umber above it so that it stands out. Creepy. You know, I'm going to do burnt umber pupil. Again, this is all with the 4. And remember that very little, well, I shouldn't say very little water, enough so that, your paint flows easily, but it you have control over it. It doesn't blob out. So while I'm at it, I'm going to just kind of take the bottom of the eye and add a little color to it so that it's set in place rather than just kind of floating there. Also, we can do, I need a little more water. We can do some wrinkles. This brush is phenomenal liner. Now we're going to do white highlight. So I'm going to do a dot and a dot and then a little curved line for a highlight. So this is still the 4. Now I just came in and picked up a ton of white, like really thick. And we're going to do some choppy little eyebrows. Thick, thick. There you go. Not bad. And let me show you a little bit of the beard. So I know a lot of you like to paint my Santas, and I'm very thankful for that. But they're all basically done the same way. Now again, I'm doing this fast, so. Okay, so technically I always do an underwash on the beard. Gray or burnt umber, because obviously you need, if I did white hair against the buttermilk, this buttermilk is my base coat color here, it wouldn't show up, and we want that contrast, so we need a little bit of a darker color underneath. If this was like the actual size Santa that I normally do, I'd come in with the 2, so that's what I'm going to show you now. The 2 floater. I am going to wet it, but only just to dampen it, and I wiped the excess off. I'm going to load it with the white, twirl it back and forth. When I use the brush and I'm doing little hairs or close-up work, I hold it way down on the ferrule versus holding it this way when I do a float. So I start in the edge of the face on the hairline and I pull some little tiny hairs. It's not going to look as cute because it's a bigger butt. And then I come on the tip and then I press down if I want, you know, larger hairs or cover a bigger space. This is the 2. Isn't this amazing? Like what kind of coverage you can get with it? Okay, now when I do the mustache, I start in the center of the nose and underneath. And kind of just go back and forth and then start to just follow the shape of the mustache. All with the 2, which is crazy. You could do the same thing with the 4 or the 8. In fact, let me show you how versatile these brushes are. This is the 8. So I'm going to wet it. I'm wiping all the excess moisture out, loading it with the white, twirling it around. Kind of angle this. I'm going to make sure I'm on camera here. So here. And the pressure that I'm applying is like it's like I'm painting on air or something. I'm barely applying any pressure. Cool, right? I love these brushes. I would love your feedback, guys, if you've purchased them. A lot of you have. And I would love your comments. I really would. I listen to everything everybody says, good or bad. Just go a little easy on me. I'm kind of fragile. Kidding. Okay, so that's that. Now I want to show you what my fantastic stipplers can do. I've got a cute little piece of paper here. Listen, when I demo, I should tell you this. This is a really high quality Mytans paper from Michaels. It's over in the fine arts, usually in a rack. And I had demoed this for a class, but it's just versatile when I travel. You know, I can just throw it in my suitcase, and I base coat this exactly like I would any surface. And the only thing about paper is that usually you have to paint the back as well, or it tends to buckle. But this is like such a good quality that it doesn't do that. So anyway, all right, I want to show you a couple of things. I want to show you how I do a large area of wash. And I also want to do some stippling, like trees and clouds and things. So I'm going to need the 14. I'm not sure that I mentioned that Brushes and More are going to expand this line for me. They are going to include, I believe, a number 6, a number 10, and I'm not sure about the 12. I don't think they mentioned that, but how cool would that be? So this is one way of doing it. I just picked up more water. Or you can wet the area first, which probably makes a lot more sense. Just don't use too much water. And then pick up your paint. This is how I would do the coat of a Father Christmas, especially like on the back where it's just all coat and a large area. Then I'm going to come in with my 1-inch Jack Richardson domed sash and do kind of a medium pressure I've got a paper towel here as I go to wipe off the excess. Also, a lot of times I'll base coat something, then I'll come in with this and stipple it so that it gives me texture, especially like if I'm doing painting on tin or porcelain or something like that. It's going to take a minute to dry. I would definitely come in with a second wash because it is a little blotchy. Lots of little hairs here. That was a new brush that I just used. Listen, it's not even in comparison to the Duster Stipler, because those were notorious for losing the bristles. These are maybe once or twice, when you use it new, but really it's so much superior than the other one. Although, don't get me wrong, I still have a ton of the other ones and do use them for like applying texture and stuff to beards and fur. There's a use for everything, right? Listen, I loved the Ultra Rounds. I did, but it's not available anymore. Or if they are, there soon won't be. And see what I just did? I wiped it with my hand. That was the only spot that was not completely dry, and I got a hole there. Shame on me. Good that you saw that, though. Okay, like I said, normally I would do another light wash on top of it, but I want to show you my clouds. So this is the 10 Stipler. This is the newest size added. I'm going to do a true dry brush stipple. So load my little 10 into my brush. I'm going to work it in really, really good. And I'm going to get a clean paper towel. I don't have a clean paper towel. Wipe the excess off. Let me test it on my hand. Very heavy-handed. So when I do my clouds, I do a straight up and down stipple. I'm going to try and hold it angled so that you can see what I'm doing. A straight up and down stipple till I know how much paint I have or have not on my brush. I like to do it uneven. You don't want to do boom, 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 a straight line. You want to give this a little movement. Once I know that I don't have a lot of paint on there and I'm ready to dry brush, I do a little circular motion here. Now, sometimes I'll take the brush and kind of drag it across to soften it even more. So that's basically how I do my clouds. Do another one for you. This is a little more paint. I come in really, really light until I know I can do a dry brush. Oh, I really went heavy on that. Really soft. Dry brush, true dry brush, you really have to end up working on it. But I do a lot of my highlights this way. So, clouds. Clouds 101. And the other thing I think I want to show you are my pine trees. People seem to have a very hard time with them, which I think is kind of crazy. I don't get it. So I'm going to take the I said ultra round. Shame on me. The 4 floater, old habits. Old habits. So I'm going to give myself the tree trunk. Start at the top and press down as you go so it gets a little wider at the bottom, or vice versa, whatever your preference is. I'm going to use, because I just cleaned my 10, I'm going to use the 8. So I'm going to stick it into Plantation Pine. I am working it in, but this is not going to be a dry brush. You don't want to wet this brush for doing this kind of a stipple. You want to, you want the bristles dry, but you want to load it with your paint. So the way I do my pine trees, I start at the top and I come in on the edge and I stipple the top very gently. Isn't that amazing? Like with this size brush that you can get that little tiny stipple. And then I kind of go angle it a little bit. And then I start to do a stipple. Very, very light touch. Pick up more paint as you need it. This is going to take forever. I should have done a smaller tree. I think you get the idea, right? Although, can't stop. Okay. So once I've done that all the way down, I'm going to take, I'll take the 8 and wet it. Now Plantation Pine is transparent on its own, so it doesn't take much to, you don't want a lot of water on your brush or you won't be able to see any detail. And what I do is I just kind of come in and I add a few individual little pine needles to kind of help it along with a shape. Like if you've got a weird area you need to fill in, you could do that with a few little pine needles. It's kind of like trompe l'oeil, we're fooling the eye. So I would love for you to give these brushes a try. I'm not telling you to throw your other ones away, the ultra rounds or the scumblers. They've served me well for a long time, but I do think you're going to see a difference for the better with these brushes. They're much more agile, I think, than the ultra rounds were, but they still hold a ridiculous amount of water and paint. There you go. Let's do snow and then I'm going to call it a day. So let's stipple it on. That'll be fun. So this is the 6. Again, it's dry, no water. Load it with the white. Kind of hold it again on an angle and then just kind of lightly tap it in. Really soft. You want them like different sizes. You don't want everything to look the same. So press, pull down for your icicles. Press, pull down to a point. Press, pull down. Okay, guys? Hope you love them. Let me know. Bye.